Hello? Okay, there we go. Welcome to this special, I guess, Thursday edition of the Humanities Forum. I'm Mark Pedretti. I'm an assistant professor in the English department here at Providence College, and I'm also a member of the Humanities Forum Advisory Committee. I have the very easy job today of essentially plugging our remaining events, which are normally held on Friday afternoons in Rouen. You can check our schedule. We still have upcoming speakers who are going to be talking about alienation in America, about Edmund Burke, and about the Spanish author Miguel de Cervantes. So you can find all our information online and see if you want to attend those events on upcoming Fridays in Rouen 105. Otherwise, I have the pleasure of introducing the hosts of today's film screening, and I'm basically going to turn it over to them. So here with us in person is Jennifer Aluzzi, who is an associate professor in the history department, where she focuses on the intersections between institutional history and diasporic populations, particularly the Romani population in Europe. She studies modern German and Italian social and political history, with a particular emphasis on gender in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Her publications include Stories of a Life Together, Reimagining Colony and Metropole, Images of Italy and Libya During the Italo-Turkish War, 1911 to 1912, and the monograph Gypsies in Germany and Italy, 1861 to 1914, Lives Outside the Law. And then with us virtually on our screen is Arthur Urbano, who's a professor in the theology department and chair of the Jewish Catholic Theological Exchange Committee. His research focuses on the theology and history of the early church, especially on the religious and cultural interactions among Christians, Jews, and pagans in antiquity. He is the co-founder of the Rhode Island Catholic Jewish Dialogue Group, and regularly co-teaches interfaith adult education courses with Providence area rabbis at local churches and synagogues. His publications include The Philosophical Life, Biography and the Crafting of Intellectual Identity in Late Antiquity, and In the Company of Wisdom in the Journal of Early Christian Studies. And so with that, I will turn it over to Drs. Aluzzi and Urbano.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mark, for that introduction, and hello, everyone. Even though I'm a very big head on a screen looking directly at you, I really can't see any of you. So just I'll trust that you're there. But thank you for coming this afternoon. Thank you, Mark, for the introduction, and we'd also like to thank Professor Raymond Hain and the Humanities Forum Committee for co-hosting and co-sponsoring this screening today, along with the Jewish Catholic Theological Exchange. We're really happy to share this film with you, which highlights an important but overlooked aspect of Providence College history, the presence, experiences, and contributions of Jewish students in the school's formative years. Some of you might remember we premiered the film back in 2017 during PC's centennial celebrations, a time when our campus community was looking back on its history. And we thought it was important to raise this chapter of PC history back into the consciousness of our community, not only because it helps us understand better the character and values of PC, but also because it was quite extraordinary for its time. When you think about it, a fledgling Catholic college staffed by the Dominican order, opening its doors wide to the local Jewish community, really at a time when anti-Semitism deeply infected institutions of higher learning and society at large. It was just about 100 years ago, 100 years ago, right, in the fall of 1922, that the first Jewish student, Joel Novogrodsky, enrolled at PC in the 4th incoming class. And over the next several decades, as we'll see in the film, the number of Jewish students dramatically increased. And in the film, we explore several questions about why Jewish students came to PC, what their experiences were like, and what they contributed to the life and culture of the college in their own words. The project was an offshoot of the work that I and others have done on campus through the Jewish Catholic Theological Exchange, which is an interreligious dialogue program that I helped establish with the theology department in 2008. And over the years of developing that initiative, I have had the pleasure of meeting many PC alums who are Jewish, who every once in a while would say to me, you know, there was a time when there were a lot of Jews at PC. And in fact, today we're joined by Ed Feldstein, class of 1964, and he's exactly one of these people who used to say that to me so many years ago. And I heard this over and over again, and I wasn't aware of this, but it was something that I became more curious about. So my curiosity led to poking around a bit in the college archives. And the really great folks over in archives at the time, Russ and Russell Franks and Robin Rancourt, sent me over some materials, which included copies of transcripts, enrollment numbers, and newspaper clippings. And then I began to dive a little more deeply into college records and found that the college kept track of the religious affiliations of students. And so it really would be possible to get a fairly accurate count on the numbers of Jewish students who enrolled at PC. And I was really astonished by what I found in those first investigations. And I realized that this was just more than a curiosity. This was really a story that needed to be told. So I pitched the idea to Dr. Luzzi to collaborate on a formal research project that would bring both historical and theological perspectives. So it was really a collaborative effort between Jen and myself, but we also hired a number of student assistants who helped us with archival research, the sorting through the data, and most importantly, the filming and the editing, which is something neither one of us really knew anything about. We chose the title Sons of Providence for the documentary, I think for three reasons. First, it's a play on the names of the synagogues that once dotted the Smith Hill neighborhood around PC. So for example, there was Sons of Zion, there was Sons of Jacob. In fact, Sons of Jacob is still at the corner of Douglas Avenue and Orm Street, and is one of the oldest synagogues in the state. And many of the Jewish young men who came to PC early on lived in that neighborhood and belonged to those synagogue communities. Second, during the period covered by the documentary, PC was an all-male school. Women were first admitted in 1970, 71. And actually we'll hear from one of the first women to graduate from PC, Faye Rozovsky, of blessed memory, who not only attended PC herself, but who had family members who attended PC in the decades that we're covering in the film. And lastly, Sons of Providence expresses something we discovered in our conversations with these men who attended the college in the early decades. PC was really a home for them, a welcoming place that provided not only education, but personal formation, lasting friendships, a sense of belonging, and fond memories. And so they were really members of the Friar family. So the film was made possible by the generosity of many, including the Horowitz Gross Bliss Fund of the Rhode Island Foundation, the Jewish Alliance of Greater Rhode Island, and the PC Committee on Aid to Faculty Research. We also need to thank the many offices and individuals on campus who helped us along the way, especially archives, enrollment services, the School of Arts and Sciences, and the Center for Engaged Learning. This is really, in a way, a community project. Before I hand it over to Jen, I just want to say, as we enter into the second 100 years of our history as a community, we really hope that the spirit of the story that you hear this afternoon, a story in which diversity, Catholic identity, and relationship building are all intertwined. We really hope that this story can help guide us into the future and into that next 100 years. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jen.
I just wanted to say a few words about the methodology we used in creating this project. Being a historian, got to talk about methods. You can also read more about the details of the methodology in the Rhode Island Jewish Historical Notes, volume 17, issue 3. If you want that reference, I'm happy to give it to you after the talk. And you can also take a look at our website here. And that contains much of the information from our work. So okay, sorry, new mic. So in 1950, a revision of the transcript eliminated the space for recording religious affiliations. So after this date, it became much more difficult for us as researchers to ascertain the percentages of Jewish students who were attending the college. Between 2015 and 2016, we conducted 29 oral history interviews. These were solicited in a number of ways, through direct contact with alumni still active in college activities, like Ed Feldstein, announcements at Rhode Island synagogues, advertisements in PC Alumni Magazine, and advertisements in the Rhode Island newspaper, The Jewish Voice. For the most part, the alumni interviewees were self-selecting. That is, individuals responded directly to the announcements and advertisements. Because interviewees tended to be enthusiastic PC supporters, and many thanks to those of you who supported us in this project in the audience today, our data tended to reflect a positive image of the college. Nonetheless, a few of our interviews indicated changes on campus that altered the atmosphere for Jewish students by the 1960s. Additional interviews with historians, faculty, and former administration officials were also solicited directly by us. For the sake of consistency throughout the period of data collection, we utilized two sets of interview questions, one for alumni, the other for faculty, staff, and scholars. We asked alumni to speak about their on-campus experiences in general and more specifically about their experiences with religion and being Jewish on a Catholic campus. We asked them to recall both their academic and extracurricular experiences and questions about their family origins and how they made the decision to attend PC. We asked faculty, staff, and outside scholars for information about institutional history, Providence College's history of interfaith work, and any anti-Semitism that they noticed on campus or in the city of Providence, and what they knew or had experienced about Jewish students during the history of the college. You can find the complete list of questions we asked in the Rhode Island Jewish Historical Notes article. All of our interviews were videotaped and transcribed. With the permission of interviewees, we are working with the Providence College Archives and the Providence College Library to redact the interviews and make them publicly available as an oral history archive. Thank you all very much for coming today. And I think without any further ado, we can begin the film.
Yeah, and it really goes to show us how important it was to get these stories when we did. That we've lost so many of these wonderful people just in the past few years since making the film. So really, it was a great honor to have their stories, preserve their stories, and make these stories available to others. So I guess now we'll transition to Q&A, and I just want to mention that we have two guests with us on Zoom. I can't see in the room, so I don't know if any more are there. But we have with us let me just look at it. Change my screen here. We have Edward Feldstein, class of 64, who you saw in the film. We also have with us Edward Gentile, class of 74, who we interviewed in the project. And his father, Herman Gentile, was also a graduate of Providence College. He was class of 1931. So we're really glad to have them here with us today. And Jen and I are glad to take any questions you have. And if you have any questions for the Eds as well. If either of you also at any point have anything you want to add, just feel free to jump in at any time. And you can feel free to turn your videos on, your video on if you wish.
Does anyone here in the live audience have a question? Yes, Judy. I'll ask you to speak into the microphone here so everybody can hear.
Yes, thank you. This is the second time I've seen this program. I really wanted to come back and have those memories. Just to remind maybe the couple of you who don't know this, everybody else in the room does, we still have a continuing relationship in the Jewish community at Providence College because since the late 80s, early 90s, we have been the degree granting institution for the New England Rabbinical College, who came to us many years ago, having their young men studying intense, very profound academics, but many not intending to be rabbis, but to go out into the world as businessmen and doctors and lawyers. So they wanted a secular degree along with their rabbinic degrees. And no other college in the area would accept any transfer credits. And we indeed have taken half the credits required for a degree here, which meant that these men could come, and a couple of women who have, as Orthodox students, come and acquire degrees here at the college. And that program continues.
Thank you so much. Yes, Richard.
From my admission as a freshman until my emeritus status, I've been at PC for 64 years. And the incident that I referred to in the film, the anti-Semitic heckling at the basketball game, is the only episode of anti-Semitism that I've ever seen at PC. I don't mean by saying that to sweep the whole record clean, but in my experience, that has been the only incident.
We did find it remarkable. We kept pushing all of our interviewees, well, something must have happened. And they would all say, no, it was quite lovely on campus. It was really, it left an impression on both of us. Other questions from the audience? Yes, Osama. Dr. Siddiqui, should I say? Huh?
Thank you so much. This was such a fantastic presentation, great film, and such a wonderful look into PC's history that I wasn't aware of. I'm wondering if you or Dr. Urbano or if anyone of the folks here can speak to a little bit about the curriculum aspect of it. How did the Jewish community and the students who came, what did they think about the sort of the required theology courses, or and what their views were on the curriculum itself, maybe the Civ program or anything of that sort?
Yeah. So this was an interesting question, especially about the requirement for religion and theology classes. One of the things that I did was we talked to the interviewees about this, and then also looked at the college catalogs over all these decades. And there was quite a variation in what was required over the course of time. So sometimes the theology classes were required for everyone, and everyone had to take them. Other times they were optional. Other times they were required of Catholic students, but non-Catholic students had to sit. They were required to sit in on the classes. So it really fluctuated over time. And several of the people that we talked to said that they appreciated the religion classes. They were able to talk about their own Judaism in the course. Actually, one other arrangement that happened at one point. I don't know if it was in the 50s, maybe. But there were separate classes for non-Catholics. So there were separate religion classes for non-Catholics. So they would put the Protestant and the Jewish students together in certain classes, and they would talk about various, religious questions and so on. But one interview stands out to me, and that's Jerome Tessler. He would talk about how much, and he was like 95 when we interviewed him, how much studying Thomas Aquinas and the philosophy of Thomas Aquinas still affected the way that he saw the world and thought about things. And he remembers he took courses, he said, in logic and cosmology and metaphysics and all of these things. And I was just really struck by how fondly he recalled those classes. But like I said, in other instances, there was variation. And I don't know if either Ed or Ed have anything to say. I know Ed Feldstein was in the honors program. I think both of them were in DWC, early in its iteration. So, yeah.
Hi, this is Ed Gentile. Yeah, I was in DWC, and I was also in the Arts Honors program in my sophomore year. I found the religion classes mostly just fine, more just something else as coursework, something academic. I think I discussed this with you, Art, when you interviewed me, how I felt that it did make me delve further into Judaism. I never felt forced or as though anybody was proselytizing. In the DWC, it was really from a historical perspective, although I do remember Father Davis making us outline the gospel according to Matthew, chapter by chapter. I didn't understand the purpose of it. I'm not sure I understand it today. But it was an exercise that I think was kind of classic for Father Davis and the way he taught religion. Classes that I took later on where I was allowed to take religion classes at a graduate level, and they were more exploratory of world religions, or I can't even remember what the other class was now, but very open, very kinds of classes where you could be very expressive. Mind you, this was in the early 1970s, and so I think the atmosphere at that time supported that kind of beginning of more individualism and acceptance of thought and differences in thought. I don't know how the curriculum has changed in the last 40 plus years, if it has changed at all, if there are formal Holocaust studies or things like that, but it was I never felt that it was a hostile requirement that we had to take the equivalent of 15 credits in religious studies. And there was certainly enough to choose from that was, I don't know, I think it eventually led to the building of my character. I think someone mentioned a little bit ago about how studying Aquinas had an effect. And I can't say that I'm an Aquinas scholar, I'm not. But having that woven into a number of different classes and hearing about Aquinas and his stance and interpretation of things, I think really did influence some of my thought at the time. I'd have to dig to see how it maybe influenced my thinking today, but there are times even today when I think back and say to myself, now this strikes a chord. And I remember a discussion in a class with Father Coskren about Aquinas. And I think that the religious studies curriculum at Providence College, at least when I experienced it, did have a lasting effect in a good way. And I want to emphasize that in a good way. Again, there was nothing coercive at all. It was a great experience.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, Ed Feldstein, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Arthur. So I was in the college from the years 1960 to 1964. So compared to Dr. Grace, I only have a 62-year history at the college. During the period I was there, my recollection is that instead of the required theology courses, we could substitute philosophy. And I recall the cosmology and logic courses. The closest I came, I think, to the Catholic theology was as president of the St. Thomas More Club, which was the pre-law club. We would start the meetings with a Hail Mary, and that I would always turn over to my vice president to lead the Hail Mary. So religion was a small part of the curriculum for the Jewish students during that period.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks.
If there are no other questions, there are refreshments for those of us here in person out that door to the right side of the auditorium. And Arthur, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we wrapped up and had some snacks?
No, just to say thanks to everyone for coming. This was a really moving project to work on. We met such great people in doing this, and really learned a lot about the college's history, and really this kind of little known chapter, which I was expecting a few little tidbits of information, but really, we had to cut off at like 1965 because this could keep going on. We didn't even talk about Jewish faculty. There's so many other questions. We really could make a part 2 to this film, right? To go into the later decades. And I also just want to acknowledge the number of wonderful Jewish faculty that we still have here on our campus, Jewish students and so on. So, thanks to Jen for, agreeing to come on to this project, helping to make it a reality, and, to Ed who participated, and Richard, I heard you were there, Richard. Thank you for participating, and everyone else. So, Ed Feldstein, did you raise your hand again, or is that?
I did. Just one final thought. I want to personally thank, on behalf of the Jewish community, thank you and Jen especially for all the time and effort that went into this project. And as we know, Arthur, you've continued to teach classes to those of us at Temple Emmanuel. You and Rabbi Franklin have continued to do that. And you've significantly strengthened the relationship with the Jewish community and opened the eyes of many people. You and Jen have both done that with your study. And as a past president of the Jewish Federation, I can't tell you how important it's been to our relationship and how much we value the work the two of you have done. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, very Ed. Much. Thank you, and thank you for being such a good friend to us at the college and to our JCTE program. It's much appreciated as well.
Well, thank you everyone for your time. Please join us for refreshments and have a great